One, action.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the April business meeting of the Croton Harmon Board of Education to order. And before we rise for the pledge, I'd like to turn it over to Trustee Anna Tague.
Thank you, Sarah. YouTube closed captions are available shortly after completion of each meeting live stream. YouTube offers an auto translation of their closed captions in multiple languages. And for Spanish speakers, los subtítulos de YouTube están disponibles poco después de la finalización de la transmisión en vivo de cada reunión. YouTube ofrece una traducción automática de los subtítulos en varios idiomas. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mr. Pasquarelli's third grade class.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Born and unborn.
Superintendent Walker, would you like to share with us what Mr. Pasquarelli's class is up to?
Yes, I wanted to say thank you to Mr. Pasquarelli and his class for a wonderful recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. I've had a chance to visit their class several times in the past few months, and most recently they were having a really robust and energetic discussion about weather and climate. And I want to give a shout out to Mr. Pasquarelli, actually, who I've seen him probably 5 or 6 times, and at varied times during the day and during the week. His level of energy and passion for what he does is clear and overwhelming, and you can tell that his students benefit from the desire that he brings to this work every day. So I want to say thank you to him and to his class. And if you're out there, Tigers, have a great Friday tomorrow. Thanks for everything.
Thank you. All right, recommended action that the Board of Education approves the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second. On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carries. All right, we will now move into my president's report. So good evening again, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight, people in person and live streaming. We're surrounded tonight by the wonderful artwork from our AP Art students, so it's lovely to see it still up. They had their show earlier this week. So I just had a few items that I wanted to highlight this evening during my report. The first is that the public budget hearing will be held at our May business meeting on May 5th, 2022, here in the community room. We encourage the community to come out and share your thoughts on the proposed budget for the 2022-2023 school year. Additionally, candidate petitions for the Board of Education trustee are due to the district clerk on April 18th by 5 p.m. Candidate packets are available on the district website or by contacting our district clerk, Tracy Borges. If you're interested in board service, I would encourage you to take a look at the BOE tab on the district website, and please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us if you have any questions. I'd also like to congratulate our Destination Imagination teams who just competed in the New York State Finals. We had 7 teams compete. 5 of those teams took 1st or 2nd place, and 2 of them took 3rd or 4th. So congratulations, Tigers. At the high school, the PTSA is working with Foodie Card on a fundraising initiative to provide purchasers with a discount card for participating restaurants, and also gives back to Feeding Westchester. You can find more information about Foodie Card on the PTSA's social media or going straight to Foodie Card itself. They're also collaborating with the Booster Club to bring more spirit to the school community during the week of April 18th. Over at CET, the PTA is really excited to announce that the Scholastic Book Fair is returning this week, and they're returning the week after spring break. So it's been some time since we've had the book fair in person. It'll run from Wednesday, April 20th through Saturday, April 23rd. In May, they will have their principal's coffee on May 5th and spring movie night on May 13th, where the basket raffles will be on display, and then they'll have the drawing later on at the end of May. As always, thank you to our PTSAs for all of the work that they do on behalf of our students and our schools. I hope that all of our families and staff have a wonderful spring break next week. And this concludes my president's report. So we will now open it up to hearing of the public. Speakers may use the podium to address the board on school district matters. And we ask that you state your name, and you can provide an email or address on the sign-up sheet that's provided. And please to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Name is Ed Riley from Truesdale Drive.
Excuse me, Mr. Riley, before you start, you want the clock up again? Would that help?
I'm
Yes,
trying to
ma'am.
get it, sorry.
Okay.
And I guess the other question is for our video person. If Mr. Riley does not have a mic, are you able to pick up the sound okay?
Yes.
Great.
Too quiet or too loud.
Sorry, we'll just, if you just bear with Tracy for a second, she'll get the clock up for you. So if you wanted to hold on.
Sorry, it's not coming up. There it is. Well, there, I'll restart it, Mr. Riley, when you're ready. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to address a couple of things. Item 1, you have a member of the board who's insulted publicly various groups in writing in the village. Now, if I was that person and wanted to remain on the Board of Education, I would find the biggest billboard in the world and put my apologies, specific apologies on there. Otherwise, a person who's unapologetic about those comments cannot remain on the public board. Why? Because you have policies within your school that would not let your students do this. And then you have a board member who does it, not one time, but multiple times. I think you need to address that. I think the person needs to address it himself. It's not difficult to solve. One of the institutions that was attacked was the Croton Fire Department. I can tell you a story. I have a friend who graduated this high school about 1945. Actually, he left high school at age 16 and joined the Navy. They call it the Chinese Navy. While he was in high school, because all the men were gone, 20% of this village was at the war. 20% of this village. The high school seniors were responsible for the fires in this town. So that when a fire took place, the junior and senior class went to the freaking fire. Imagine that today. So instead of attacking the fire department, which is an all-volunteer force, you should be recruiting members, which will lead me to another neglected group in the high school, I believe. And that is working class kids who have no intention of going to college, or they're only going to go to a 2-year college, but probably make more, twice as much as I ever did. Item C on my list is your protest committee. Right now, your protest committee, I don't know how many members it has in its high school, but you have an imbalance. This is not a diversified school system. And I know, because I talk to your kids when I pick at the school, they feel like they cannot, the parents feel afraid. They'll be called all sorts of names, racist, homophobe, left wing, and the kids are afraid to speak up. Conservative religious kids are afraid to speak up. So there's no balance here. That balance needs to be corrected. I'll give you statistics on teachers and professors later. But this is the shocking scandal to me. The protest committee has gone after the climate, the environment, screwed up our, supporting our energy policy, et cetera, But not one peep when these heroic students, high school students, college freshmen, organized their protests in Hong Kong, risked their life, bodily injury, and jail time to protest. Croton Harmon Protest Committee didn't say a word.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Anyone else? Is there anyone else?
This will conclude hearing with the public, and I will hand it over to Superintendent Walker for his report.
Thank you, Sarah. Always a pleasure to get a chance to share some of the wonderful things that our students, the staff, and faculty have been engaged in the time since we were last together in the same room at the same time. Just, Greg, if you would pull that up. We're going to start with, I had the opportunity to see the Saturday night performance of the PBC musical Aladdin Junior. And I know left with my cheeks hurting from having smiled and laughed so much. And I think that's probably a safe statement to be made on behalf of everybody who was there. It was, the talent was obvious. The amount of time that the students, as well as Christina Carmesino and Sally Barnes and Chase Itter and everyone else involved in the production had put in, was readily apparent. It was humorous, endearing. Really, I think the future of musical theater in our district looks very bright if we use that Friday and Saturday night as our barometer. So I congratulate all of them. Bravo, brava to all of them who were involved in that wonderful production. As always, we like to spend time welcoming new members of our faculty and staff to our team. And so we had the opportunity in the past couple of weeks to welcome Ian Murtaugh, who certainly is no stranger to our community. And it was wonderful to get a chance. I spent about an hour with Ian, actually. He had many, many stories to tell me. I learned a great deal about the history of the community and his history in the community. But it's wonderful to hear him say how excited he is, how honored he is to drive our kids on the same streets that he learned to drive on when he was a young person, perhaps a few years ago. And thank him, of course, for his service on the village board, and now, of course, for his service to our students in this role as bus driver. So welcome, Ian, to the team. Fun fact about Ian, he enjoys long motorcycle trips, multi-state trips on his motorcycle, typically around a theme. And so he shared with us that this summer the theme is going to be stops that have a musical significance. So he'll be down in Nashville, checking out hopefully some country music, and spending time, I believe, with his brother and cousin with whom he goes on these long trips. So we look forward to hearing Ian's stories about those when he returns. And we welcome also Gina Fitzsimmons, school nurse at the high school. Gina, just phenomenal member of our staff, does a wonderful job in supporting our students in a variety of different ways. I had the opportunity to spend about a half an hour in a very, very busy nurse's office a couple of weeks ago with Gina, watching her interact with our students, and came back and said to Rachel DePaul, who oversees, of course, the nursing program, Gina is a star. She's just has the right heart for this work and to do this with our kids. It's a treat to have her as part of the team. And Gina, besides being, of course, very busy in her professional life, is also a yoga instructor and a mom of 4. So I think she may actually come to work for a break from the hardest work outside of the high school. So we welcome Ian and Gina to the team. I also had the opportunity to take part in on March 14th, the celebration of Pi Day at CET. The students who raised the most money for the American Heart Association's Kid Heart Challenge were able to pie in the face a member of the administration and faculty. In total, the initiative raised over $23,000 for the American Heart Association, which I understand is a record for CET, and I would imagine for certainly schools in the region. I do want to make note that conspicuously absent from this program were John, Denise, Jared, and Rachel. So I just want to make this point that 12 months from now, when we're talking about this, I would like to see the 4 of you seated there.
I took some good pictures.
Yeah, I
took those pictures.
So we'll talk to Carrie and Craig about new participants for next year. But congratulations to all the students, and thank you to the staff who took part in that. Of course, we want to celebrate the beginning of the spring sports season. I have had a chance to watch a number of our different teams play, weather permitting. It's not been a great weather start to the spring, but I thank all of our coaches, parents, booster club, athletic advisory committee, and of course our student athletes for giving us so much great entertainment to start the spring season. And thanks also to DJ Goldman for all the coordination that he's doing with a lot of rescheduling of events already. So go Tigers. Also, John and I had a chance earlier this week to sit in on the French Seal of Biliteracy presentations at the high school. These 3 young people are exceptional in a number of ways, but their knowledge and facility with the French language was overwhelmingly impressive, I think, to both of us. Fiona, Emma, and Rose, just remarkable, talented, bilingual young people, and a real testament to the quality of the program. Certainly their effort and talent, but also the incredible talent of their teachers. So I want to congratulate everybody involved in those presentations, and we look forward to the Spanish biliteracy presentations, which are occurring the week after spring break. Also on March 11th, we had a chance to welcome Dr. Bill Daggett, renowned educational thinker and speaker, who spent the day in our district. Gave an outstanding keynote address to the entire faculty on future focused schools that has already become the impetus for some other work and conversations that we're thinking through as a district. Spent some time with our administrative leadership team, our curriculum coordinators and fellows, as well as incoming pedagogical coaches. And then in the afternoon, we opened up an invitation to leaders throughout the region to come and get a chance to spend some time with Bill. And that was very well received as well. So it was great to be able to open up our building to the rest of the region and have other leaders come and learn alongside us from Dr. Daggett. We look forward to continued work with him through Learning 2025 going forward. We want to also thank Jared Blair, Dr. Blair, Greg Cavallari, and the entire PVC Student Council, as well as Michael and Lauren for their leadership in putting together a video, which I'm going to be sharing with you shortly, called Caring for Your Chromebook. You'll see a kind of a Saturday Night Live skit vibe to this, but certainly addressed for our 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders around the importance of caring for that resource. And I got Michael's special permission to share with the board a day early. It'll be in the weekly tomorrow and shared with our parent community tomorrow. But Greg, if you would share this, I think you'll find this to be instructional and enjoyable. Thanks also, by the way, to Jocelyn Fontana, of course, faculty advisor for the Student Council.
Hello, PVC Tigers. I'm Dr. Blair, the Director of Technology and Innovation here at Croton Schools, and I'm here to talk to you about how to avoid damaging your Chromebook. Like our friend Bob here is doing. This is a perfect example of how damaging technology is expensive, will make your parents pay, and keep our technology staff busy with repairs. Let's see what we can do.
Fortunately, I've got some good news for you. My name's Spencer, and I'm the Student Council Website and Technology Manager. You don't all have to be Bob. Here are some easy tips that will help you make sure that your Chromebook gets through the school year safe and sound.
My name's Gertrude. I'm heading to class. Recently, my friend Bob lost his Chromebook falling down the stairs. Fortunately, I'm a goody-good Gertrude, and will keep my Chromebook safe. Just look at the great shape it's in.
Look at Gertrude's Chromebook. Notice there are no cracks in the screen nor any missing keys. I can type, and it's all coming out clearly. The touch screen here isn't smudged. It's just properly functioning as it should be. So you might be wondering, how has this all happened? How has Gertrude not become a Bob? Well, you just have to properly treat your Chromebook. Here's an example of how to carry it properly and to also be a goody-good Gertrude. Gertrude is trying to get to class quickly. She's got a heavy load of books in her arm, but she knows that if she hurries too much, she's bound to drop her Chromebook. So what does she do? She holds her Chromebook in a firm, two-handed grip, and this makes sure that she will not drop her school supplies. Hopefully, she won't lose her Chromebook like Bob. So dropping a Chromebook can lead to extremely bad consequences, those that are far worse than being just a few seconds late to class, as my fellow Student Council member Sean will tell you.
Hello, I'm Bob, and I really can't be late to class. So let me just grab this Chromebook and throw it in my
Oh, come on.
Hi, I'm Sean, Website and Technology Manager for the Student Council. I'm extremely saddened by the state of this Chromebook. The frame is breaking and the keys are completely popped off. Bob will most likely lose this Chromebook for repairs. If he has to use a damaged one like this, it'll be very hard to use as it's extremely hard to click at keys. He won't even know what letters they are. He and his family are going to be completely billed for this, and the cost will probably be super high, up to maybe $500. So this might cause arguments within the family. Now, I know you're worrying about what might happen to you, but there's a way you can fix this.
Thank you so much, PVC Tigers, for watching. Hopefully, I'll see you following some of Good Gertrude's examples and having a positive technology school year. You too, Bob. See you around.
So who will you be? A goody good Gertrude or a bad Bob?
So, yes. So thank you again to that entire team, to our student actors and actresses, and to everybody who helped produce that. We look forward to hearing some parent and student feedback on that video when it's officially released tomorrow. I also want to share 3 individual members of our school district community who have been recently recognized or achieved some professional success. First, of course, outstanding health teacher at the high school, Carrie Tracy, was recently recognized by the National Alliance for Mental Illness with their Community Spirit Award. Had a chance actually with John again to spend some time in Carrie's classroom earlier this week. And the environment in that room is just so well positioned to support young people in their growth in any number of different ways from a health and wellness perspective. So certainly a very, very well-deserved award and recognition for the outstanding job that she's done and continues to do. So we congratulate Carrie. Also want to congratulate class of 2022, Shoshana Daly, who was the Energy 21 Student Scholar Award winner at the Regeneron Westchester Science and Engineering Fair. We believe we have a Facebook post that features Shoshana's accomplishments in some greater detail. So we want to thank her as well. Certainly an outstanding recognition of the quality of student and scholar that comes out of our science and engineering programming here district-wide. And also wanted to congratulate again Laura Duback, who became last week Dr. Duback, successfully defending her dissertation and now has her doctoral degree from Fordham University in Educational Leadership and Policy. So we congratulate again, Laura, an outstanding leader in our school district community.
There's actually one before.
Oh, I missed one. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, and I wanted to thank Rachel and Kaylin and Amy and Lauren Carroll, as well as Desiree at Happy Hearts for all their work to coordinate the UPK lottery. We had a chance to attend that earlier this week as well. It was extremely well run, professionally put together. We congratulate the 36 families who were selected for those positions within the UPK program next year, and also the 35 families who are currently on a waiting list. We hope to be able to provide potentially some good news to them if there is any shifting in the list going forward. But want to thank again everybody who was involved in that and look forward to welcoming, I believe it's the class of 2036 into UPK in September. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to give that report.
Thank you very much.
Questions for the superintendent?
Okay.
Thank you. 2 things. One, you talked about Dr. Daggett's visit,
Yes.
and I just would like to ask, if possible, when he returns, if there might be an opportunity to work into that, some opportunity for the board to meet and interact with him. And so, yeah, so we can get a sense of the kind of work I know John had talked about.
Yeah, we'd be happy to schedule time with Bill
Great.
with the team. Absolutely.
And the second question is, and this maybe is for Greg as much as anybody else. So how many laptops or Chromebooks were destroyed in the making of this film?
That one was actually borrowed. It was a ringer, so to speak, from the Indie Lab that they normally collect to sort of take apart and learn about the embedded computing. So that one was not one of our in circulation.
Yes.
Chromebooks.
No
Chromebooks were
harm. Yes.
broken.
I should have put that to
All right. Well, thank you very much, Superintendent Walker. And I will now turn it over to Lucas Valentine, our student ex officio member. This is just on perfect timing, Lucas.
Thank you. So a group called Future Forward has been created by seniors, in which seniors talk with underclassmen to help them navigate their high school experience and as well as their college process. The 4th quarter started this Monday on April 4th. Frederick Stock, Fiona Moore, Emma Castro, and Rose Shupak Diaz have been awarded the seal of biliteracy in French. The AP Art Show was held and is still being held, I guess, in here. A gallery of self-portraits of high school students are up on display in Frankie's Sandwich and Grill in downtown Croton. This week is Spirit Week, and each day having its own theme. Today was, I believe, barbecue dads versus soccer moms, so that was interesting. And tomorrow is Color Wars, so that should be fun with, I believe, musical chairs in limbo. The National Honor Society induction will be held the Monday after break on the April 18th at 5 o'clock in the auditorium. The annual Take Back the Night March will take place on April 28th at 6:30, starting at Five Corners. The spring drama Clue is opening on the night of April 29th and will also be performed on April 30th as well. And students are preparing for AP exams starting in early May, and seniors are beginning to finalize their choose placements, and they will begin their placements starting May 13th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucas. We will now move into new business. So first up, we have a policy committee has several policies that they are presenting for first reading. So I will turn it over to our policy chair, Neil Haber, to give a brief overview of these policies.
Thank you. Each of these policies are revisions of existing policies in various areas with recommendations from NYSBA. Each of they have been reviewed by the policy committee and by administration as necessary. One of the things that I should note is, just for these may be a particular concern, when you look at policy 1530, smoking, vaping, tobacco, that deals with the use of cannabis. Now that cannabis has been made legal both for medicinal and recreational purposes, not for persons under the age of 21, for recreational purposes, but policy has been revised to address issues, including the issue of the circumstance in which a student or faculty member, a staff member, has a medical prescription for the use of cannabis, which would require that individual to be used during the school day. I should also note with regard to policy 5420R, that has been reviewed and approved by our Director of People Personnel Services, who overlooks health-related matters. The one change that is there of note is that the law permits school districts to have, I guess, rescue inhalers prescribed by the school physician on hand. We do not do that. And we don't do it for a couple of, so if that question comes up, for a couple of reasons. One is, as Mr. Paul had explained, is that everybody's prescription is so different that it's not like an EpiPen where we do have EpiPens with a standing prescription for emergencies. Everybody's has a different formulation, so therefore we can't do that. And so parents are responsible for making sure that the school has in place an inhaler as necessary, and if students are going to self-administer the inhaler, that they have it and that the appropriate permissions are filed with the school nurse. Other changes in these policies are not significant, except I will also point out that with regard to policy 1230, public participation at board meetings, which our current policy is called public comment at board meetings, that policy just codifies the process by which members may speak during hearing of members of the community, may speak during hearing of public, and make sure that we are consistent in how that is applied with regard to anyone who may come and wish to speak before us. If there are any comments from the community, they can direct those to the district clerk, who will forward them to me. If there are comments from the board, I've received a couple, and I can answer questions if people have them. And they're otherwise, anybody else have anything before second reading?
Yeah, I just, really quick, and it's not, I want to thank the policy committee for the work. So I just want you to maybe consider on a policy for public comment at board meetings. It has the 3-minute time limit written into the policy. Maybe you might not want to have it written into the policy, maybe have it sort of established at the board reorg. And the only reason why I'm suggesting that is because I know for about 7 years, there was a policy saying that we meet on Monday when we actually meet on Thursday. So just in terms of, you don't want to have a policy that you're openly not following. So if you should ever change that 3-minute time limit, you would need to go back to policy and change it. I don't know if it needs to be written in to the policy. So that was just something I want you guys to think about.
Okay. Well,
And I'll
that's-
take your
I will just
recommendation.
point out that one thing that is there is that the last paragraph of the policy, as it currently exists, it gives the board president the right to control the meeting,
Yeah.
which would mean that in an appropriate circumstance, on a case-by-case basis, I would assume the president can say, yes, we'll give you more time. But I know one of the concerns in most school districts have a limit of that nature is to ensure that our meetings are not going so long. Yeah, I understand.
No,
your point.
I just want to, I'm just like throwing this out for policy
Sure.
when you guys need to
Yeah, we'll talk
consider,
about
to think about. I was just, and my only point is, do you want to put the time limit number in the policy, or do you want to leave yourself a little sort of more
Okay.
open-ended
We can talk about that.
phrasing?
Mhm.
And I also didn't understand where it says group and organizations are limited to one member speaking. I was a little bit unclear as to what the, how that would be effectuated. So like if someone from, let's say Croton DI came, would we be saying only one Croton DI person could speak? So it wasn't clear in the policy how we were going to establish you're speaking as a group versus you're speaking as an individual. So maybe just take a look at that language.
We discussed that, and
Oh, you
and
did?
I will tell
Okay.
you, one of the things that we thought about is when we have had situations in which a organization comes before us, a group comes before us, and they say, we are, the DI group, or the girls soccer group, as we've had a number of years ago, and a number of people come up to the podium. We don't want that group, in essence, saying there are 6 people there. Well, each one gets 3 minutes, and now they've got 18 minutes where they're up there. So if individuals are speaking as individuals, and one person goes up and says, I am Ms. X, and I am a part of DI, and I'd like to talk about why DI is so great. And then they sit down, and the next person says, I'm also a member of DI, and I want to tell you why it's so great. That's it's the individual versus organizational presentation.
So yeah, no, I understand that,
Okay.
and I just said, I don't know how we're gonna administer that.
All right, well,
Because I'm thinking like the equity team, right? With several members talk from the team, and other groups. So I just want,
Okay, well-
I'm happy to hear you guys thought about it. It mentioned the president controls the meeting. I didn't know if you meant that the vice president is no longer the sergeant at arms for the meeting.
no, I think the answer to that is the president controls the meeting. And if the president turns to the right, say, you do the dirty work. Well, you've been delegated to do the dirty work, or whatever.
And then the last thing was just, it says remarks are to the board president. And I didn't understand why it was being singled out, that remarks are being solely to the president as opposed to the full board.
Basically, because the thought was the president represents the board, and we didn't want remarks being directed at Omar or at John.
So
it's because it's speaking to the board,
Speaking to the board.
in
It's not,
terms of.
it wasn't that your
Right.
remarks can't be made to the full board. Okay. And then secondly, the only thing with policy 5460R, the regulation, I note that, and I know our superintendent and our building principals would never be the subject of a child abuse claim. But the reporting requires a reporter to report to the superintendent and the principal. If they are the target though, I would think that that would be a chilling requirement. So you may want to
If
consider,
if I can respond to that.
because I've had that situation.
Policy
that it's
5460
not good.
refers to requirement of school officials to report suspected cases of child abuse, maltreatment, or neglect in a domestic situation, i.e. outside of school.
Okay, so it doesn't. cover
Policy
if it occurs in school.
5465 deals with child abuse in an educational setting.
Wonderful.
And our 5465 specifically addresses what the reporting process is by a member of the public or staff if there is an accusation of an administrator being suspected of child abuse in the
Wonderful.
educational setting. So we.
I didn't pick up on that. Thank
Okay.
you. That's it.
I also received some comments by email from Omar, which I think, unless you want to speak to them, we can just deal with them.
At another time.
Yeah, I mean, before, yeah, okay.
Absolutely fine.
Does anyone else have any other questions right now for policy committee? As Neil said, right, if you have any questions as you're giving these a review before our second reading, just direct them to policy committee.
And I will have an additional report at board report. So
Board
unless you wanted me to do it now, we'll do it later.
We'll do it during board reports. Great. All right, so we will now move on to 3.2, recommended action that the Board of Education approves the agreement between Croton Harmon Union Free School District and KG&D Architects PC as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Sarah, if I could just talk about our
Absolutely.
process a little bit briefly.
Please.
So the district issued an RFP in November. We received 5 submissions. At that point, we established an RFP review committee. We convened to evaluate the proposers. 2 firms were selected. They were interviewed by the entire committee. KG&D rose to the top in many areas. And this contract represents the bid, what was comprised in our bid proposal. We have a master agreement, which covers all agreements, and then 4 separate project-specific agreements to address some of the unique components of each. It includes the building condition survey, the turf feasibility study, district-wide drainage, and kindergarten AC. So we are looking forward to moving this project along very quickly.
All right, does anyone have any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carries. All right, I think we can say we are all very much looking forward to this work again. All right, we'll now move on to 3.3, our athletic merger. Recommended action resolved that the Board of Education approves the 7-way New York State Public High School Athletic Association NYSPHSAA merger between Croton Harmon Union Free School District, Irvington Union Free School District as host, Public Schools of Tarrytowns, the Leffel School, Austining Union Free School District, Ardsley Union Free School District, and Dobbs Ferry Union Free School District for boys ice hockey as presented for the 2022-2023 school year. Be it further resolved that the Board of Education approves the 22-way New York State Public High School Athletic Association, NYSPHSAA, merger between the Croton Harmon Union Free School District and the high schools of Ardsley, Brewster, Carmel, Edgemont, Fox Lane, Forest Greeley, John Jay Cross River, Lakeland, Mamaroneck, New Rochelle, Austining, Panis, Pelham, Pleasantville, Rye, Neck, Scarsdale as host, Somers, Ursuline, Westlake, and White Plains for girls ice hockey as presented for the 2022-2023 school year.
So
Second.
On the question? I do believe we have DJ with us, if anyone wanted to get a little
Hi, DJ,
more information.
Hey, DJ.
Hi, DJ. How are you doing this evening? If you wanted to give us just a brief overview of this merger.
Sure. So I initially had conversations with several families who expressed an interest in establishing ice hockey for boys. And following those conversations, I did a little research to identify possible merger partners. And in having those conversations with several different schools, the Irvington School District, who hosts the River Towns merger, really jumped to the top as the best possible option for the boys merger. And then in subsequent conversations, there were 2 female students who also expressed a potential interest in participating in girls ice hockey. And currently in section 1, there are only 2 teams that participate in girls ice hockey. One is housed in Rockland and the other one is the 22 schools that were just listed for Westchester. So those were the 2 mergers that were just presented. And if anyone has any specific questions, I'd be happy to help answer them.
Yeah.
Yeah. First question, I think you answered, but as I did looked at my research, closest beyond the one Rockland County team is, I believe, in Albany. So other than the Westchester team playing the Rockland team 5 times or however many times you're going to be able to do it, what other competition will the joint Westchester team have?
All right, here we go, Neil. I have the schedule from last year. So some of the schools that were competed against on the girls ice hockey were Wilton, Connecticut, Ridgefield, Connecticut, the Rockland team again, team in Westfield, New Jersey, Darien High School, again, the Rockland team, Rye Country Day, Greenwich High School, New Canaan, Rockland again, Greenwich High School. And then there were 2 trips that were scheduled by the girls ice hockey team. One tournament that took place up in the Lake Placid area, and then another one that took place in the Niagara area. So it's a lot of Connecticut schools, but the primary competition for section purposes is with the Rockland team.
So in terms of section, for purposes of any tournaments, et cetera, since you're within your section, is it sort of like, well, one of the 2 of them are going to go on to regionals?
Automatically in the finals.
I wish.
And then yes, following the similar New York State state championship format, the section winner would then move on to play in a regional championship and then in the state championships throughout the tournament. So yeah, if we can beat the Rockland team, we could advance to a regional championship and beyond.
So the other question I have is in terms of cost and how cost is apportioned among the 22 districts who are in this merged.
So everything is everything is identified on a per pupil participant cost. So the greatest portion of that cost are the coaching stipend and also then the rink time. So those are the 2 biggest components of the expenditure. And then, like I said, it's then calculated on a per pupil cost. So if we have 2 students who are participating on the varsity level team, the Scarsdale athletic director told me that it's in the neighborhood from last year's participation of $1,500 per participant. That's on the girls' side. I had similar conversations with the Irvington athletic director, who also expressed the same type of formula, and again in the neighborhood of $1,500 per participant.
And so since this would be per participant, is this a similar manner of payment and financing as we use for our other merged teams like swimming and gymnastics?
For the most part, yes. However, each individual district has done things slightly differently in my experience here at Croton Harmon. For instance, the gymnastics merger, I received, the bill more recently in the amount of like $470. Again, the cost per pupil is the standard way that things are billed out. And ice time is one of those more expensive pieces in comparison to our gymnastics facility that is owned and operated by the head coach. So I think we get a little break on the gymnastics facility.
So what this really means is, for Title IX purposes, we are offering equal opportunity for boys and for girls to participate in ice hockey and providing full cost for those who want to participate.
Any boy or girl who would like to participate in ice hockey has the opportunity to do so.
Right, which, so I'm just thinking about Title IX concerns, and I don't see one here, so I think it's really good.
There would not be a Title IX concern.
Great, thank you.
Any other
You're
questions for teacher? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose, abstain, motion carries. Thank you very much, DJ, for joining us to discuss this. Have a
Thank
great
you,
night.
everyone. Thank you.
All right, we'll now move on to 3.4, recommended action that the Board of Education approves the side letter of agreement between the Croton Harmon Union Free School District and the Croton Teachers Association as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carries. We'll now move into ongoing business. Recommended action that the Board of Education approves the 2022 through 2025 Croton Harmon Union Free School District Comprehensive Technology Plan as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? We have Dr. Blair with us this evening. If Dr. Blair would like to give us a brief overview as well of this comprehensive plan, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all again. So as you may know, every year, 3 years, 3-year cycle, the state requires us to submit an instructional technology plan. So this is what we've put together. We had the opportunity to put together a focus group that helped us to define the 3 goals that you see within this document. And our focus group was able to work with Lyric at Southern Westchester BOCES and with Jeff Sun from Sun Associates, who took us through the plan and really helped us to kind of structure out our goals and our action steps as we see them through the next 3 years.
Does anyone have any questions?
Just, we had a long discussion with you at our, I think it was our last work session. We talked about technology. From my reading of the plan, it really accords with the things that we had talked about during your presentation. Is there anything new or different that we should be aware of before we approve the plan?
No, nothing new, and I appreciate that. The intent was to leave as much flexibility as possible, just considering that we are coming to the end of our 5-year strategic plan and embarking on a new one. It's an interesting time period, right, to be establishing a technology plan. So we're just really taking the momentum that the district has right now, and the way the goals were structured really allows us to keep it as open as possible to make progress as we continue to evolve the next steps of our strategic planning process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Blair? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose, abstain, motion carried. Thank you very much for joining us this evening to discuss this. Have a great night.
Thanks for having me. Have a good night.
Thanks, Jerry.
All right, we'll now move on to 4.2, recommended action that the Board of Education approves the participation of the Croton Harmon Union Free School District in the 2022-2023 cooperative bid for diesel fuel with Clarktown Central School District as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carries. And now on to 4.3, policies for second reading. Recommended action, the Board of Education conducts a second reading and adopts policy 5152, admission of non-resident students as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carries. We will now move into instructional personnel. Recommended action that the Board of Education approves the instructional personnel leave replacement appointment of Bin Liu, 1.0 FTE foreign language teacher, as a leave replacement for Ki Song at Pierre Van Cortlandt Middle School, effective March 4th, 2022 through June 30, 2022, at an annual salary of $64,615, MA Step 1, to be prorated.
So moved. Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carried. And 5.2, be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, hereby appoints Andrew Vogel as a 1.0 FTE mathematics teacher, mathematics tenure area, at the Croton Harmon High School at a salary of $79,965, MA 15, Step 5. Mr. Vogel is appointed to a 3-year probationary term as a mathematics teacher, commencing on August 30, 2022, and probationary term ending on August 29, 2025, in the tenure area of mathematics. In order to be eligible for appointment to tenure, said teacher must receive at least 3 APPR ratings of effective or highly effective pursuant to Article 3012D of the Education Law during the 3-year probationary term, and may not receive an ineffective rating in the final year of probation. Mr. Vogel has professional certification in mathematics 7 through 12.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Actually, this is on the last resolution, which I just want to ask, we call that a foreign language teacher. Has the nomenclature changed as we do in our district to world language? Or is the official title still foreign language as far as that?
The tenure area language hasn't changed. No.
Okay,
It's foreign
so,
language.
because I saw that and I realized, well, you know,
We would love to see
It's
some
not what we
updates
call
to the
them, but-
tenure area language, but it hasn't happened.
okay, fine, thanks.
On the question on this resolution?
Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carries. We'll now move into donations. Recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation in the amount of $600 from the American Legion as a contribution to 2 American Legion awards at Croton Harmon High School.
So moved.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carries. Recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation in the amount of $6,000 from Soul Systems as a contribution to 3 scholarships for $2,000 each at the Croton Harmon High School.
So moved.
On the question?
I just note that this is a scholarship we have not had previously. And I know that Soul Systems has made this donation because they say in the materials that they are involved in business, a project in the community, which is actually the placement of solar panels at the train station parking lot. I am just hopeful that somehow that they will develop an ongoing relationship with us so that this is not just a 1-year gift because they're in the middle of a project, and when the project's done, they will disappear. That's just a hope if they're watching.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carried. 6.3, recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation in the amount of $1,000 from the Croton Harmon High School Foundation, care of Barbara Albano, as a contribution towards a scholarship at Croton Harmon High School.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carries. Recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation in the amount of $200 from Neil and Suzanne Haber as a contribution to the Jean Pearl Memorial Award.
Second.
On the question?
On the question. First, since I'm the donor, I will be abstaining,
Abstaining.
but I think it's important every year to explain to the community and the board what this scholarship or this award, not scholarship, has been. Jean Pearl was a member of this board for 6 years in the 1960s and early 70s and returned from the late 90s into the mid 2000s for 9 years. One of the things that Jean, who passed away a few years ago, was most involved in and most connected to is the transitional alternative plan program at the high school, TAP program. And making sure that the students who are in the TAP program, students who may not be going on to college, may be going into a trade, may be going into the military, receive the support and encouragement of the board and of the community. And after Jean's passing, I and the teacher of the TAP program, who is retiring this year, and others thought that a fitting tribute to Jean and a fitting support for the students in that program would be to establish an award, the Jean Pearl Memorial Award. And it is an award, it is not a scholarship. It is not for someone who necessarily will be going on to higher education. It is a recognition of a student who has shown commitment and perseverance through the difficulties that they may have had in their scholastic efforts in our school district and have come through and to help them along the way.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain,
Abstain.
motion carries. 6.5, recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation in the amount of $200 from Eric Kohler and New York Life as a contribution to the Carrie E. Tompkins Elementary School General Fund.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carries. As always, thank you very much to all of our donors this evening who have generously donated gifts to our students and to our school. We are very much appreciative. We will now move into the consent agenda. Recommended action that the Board of Education approves all items in the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the question,
And we just have a minute for
you may.
I have a question.
Yes, absolutely.
With respect to item 7.14, non-instructive personnel recommendations, there's an hourly rate, and when we get to the bus dispatchers, it's just listed as bus dispatchers, and then it continues at the prevailing rate. So is that at the prevailing rate, or is there an omission of an hourly rate?
For the dispatchers, it's based on their salaried employees as opposed to the monitors and drivers, which are hourly employees. So the bus dispatchers will be paid their hourly rate based on their civil service hours and their contract salary.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? You all set, yeah? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain? Motion carries. All right, we are now moving into the closing of the meeting. So we will move to our second hearing of the public. Again, we ask that anyone who wants to speak for hearing of the public use the podium to address the board on school district matters. You can state your name and provide your email address or address on the sign-up sheet. and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
From my lawyer with me. Have a number of things to speak about. First, DEI and CRT, which are one and the same. It's just either a lot of Kool-Aid or just a little bit of Kool-Aid. In attending the David Kirkland seminar over the summer, it's a 2-hour seminar, one of the primary consultants, he drafted the CRT DEI program for the state of New York. You adopted his program almost full swallow. I just looked over my notes. And then in his seminar, he said, this is Steinhardt NYU. This is a nonprofit organization, right? Is your consultant. And then you hired one of his consultants, Natalie's, the incredible disappearing name, Natalie's Ritter. This is pertinent. We have to build a movement based on coalitions to achieve political power, nonprofit. This is a political fight, David E. Kirkland. This is about winning local control of the school board. I'm going to address that later in subsequent meetings, but just let that sink in. The other thing that I detest about CRT and DEI, I detest it, is I don't know if you're aware of it. The Black History Museum is in the center of the mall. You look out one way, it's the Capitol building. You look out the other way, it's the Lincoln Memorial. The Black History Museum did not put Clarence Thomas in the museum. That people had to rattle their cage to put Clarence Thomas in the museum. The second thing, which is despicable, and you've seen this elsewhere, they said that the common disciplinary concepts that we all value, regardless of race, as parents raising our kids, as teachers teaching people, of cleanliness, being on time, hard work, stick-to-itiveness, all the virtues that we value and try and instill in our children are white values that are being projected on people of color. Now that's absurd. That's absurd. But they had that in that museum. And here's a Latino, supposedly speaking for Latinos, which is nonsense. Critical race feminism. This is Maria Ontiveros. Latinos, this is really condescending, isn't it? Latinos naturally view information about being on time more generally and simply cannot see the judicial system's need for specificity and exactitude. That's disgusting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Is anyone else who would like to speak for hearing of the public? All right. We will now move into board reports. So we'll start off with advocacy. All right.
Well, except, I think we should say, public, and the public is not aware of, as we speak, the State Assembly and State Senate is working on final passage of the state budget, which supposedly, as press reports are correct, will happen sometime later tonight. We obviously don't know everything that's in it, but it's a week late, which is a lot better than in years past when they were 3 months late and we had budgets without knowing how much state aid we were going to get. But we will see what's in it for all the things that we have been talking about programmatically, and things like money for electric vehicles and so on, that we will then be able to see what we're able to work with.
All right. I will turn it over to Iris for board development.
Actually, there is one other thing on, it might be advocacy, which is.
Or it might
that-
be something else.
No, it's that the NISBA convention is going to be last weekend in October.
Yes.
In Syracuse. The NISBA has been calling for resolutions, if any districts wish to propose resolutions. I am not aware of them. our discussions that there are particular resolutions that our district believes appropriate to propose as we did last year. But if there is anything that members of the board feel perhaps that the advocacy committee might consider for submission before the deadline, and I just don't recall when the deadline is, they should let the committee know so that we can see, you know, if we're interested and see if there's other interest within our region.
Okay. Now I will turn it over to Iris for board development.
Okay. Really quick, the superintendent evaluation is scheduled currently to, there are 3 parts to it. So the first part is the superintendent has to put in his comments and evaluation, and then we put in our evaluation. That's the second part. And the third part is then we meet and we share with the superintendent, the final compilation. So currently, Super Eval, which is the tool that we use, has the deadline for the superintendent to submit his submissions May 1st. And our deadline is May 28th. Actually, I have 31st, but May 28th, somewhere at the end
Well,
of
the
the.
31st is Memorial Day.
Yeah.
It's the day after Memorial Day, so
So
perhaps.
it's the end of the month.
the end of the month.
So what the board development wanted to recommend, and we would like to get your agreement, is in considering that Superintendent Walker has just begun, and considering that even though we might have from the 1st till the 28th to complete the evaluation, we probably don't need 4 weeks to do it. We would like to give Superintendent Walker an additional 2 weeks, meaning his evaluation would be due the 15th, and then we would have him the 15th to the 28th to do our part. And so that's our recommendation. If everyone's okay with that, we would like to extend that option. And don't worry, he's sitting there taking down our phone numbers.
Give me my puppy dog eyes.
Was this addressed in the employment contract? Is it prescribed?
So the prescriptions are based on the final evaluation submission and any salary adjustments or whatever. Those are at the end of June. So it actually has to be done by June 30th. So that is
so this is leading up to that.
This is leading up to
Doesn't
that. So this
change
is just
that.
the evaluation timeline. So it gives us, basically it's building in enough time for the board to do its evaluation to then meet and then follow up with the superintendent ahead of that June 30 deadline. So this is just sort of shortening the window. It would be shortening the window for the board to complete its evaluation.
Yeah, we wouldn't shorten that last part, that third section, because it takes a while
Right.
for us to then go through all the results. And there's, so much going on in the district in June that it's hard. So, yes, Neil?
Yeah, my reaction is twofold. Number one, I think our evaluation, using that evaluation tool, is going to take each of us the same amount of time, even though the superintendent joined us in January, because we got all the questions you have to answer. But it does provide the superintendent with a little more time to kind of think about and reflect on, the year, because it's only 5 months instead of 11 months or whatever. I guess the other thing is that I've noticed that given the fact that most of us, like students, tend to do it when the deadline is tomorrow, I think that extra 2 weeks will not create any problem for us, because probably wouldn't have done it before, any earlier. No
I
matter when.
imagine Lucas does not procrastinate.
No.
Just stop looking at Lucas.
He's the only
We're
student.
probably much worse.
Yeah, he's the only student in the room. That's the only reason I looked at that.
My question is, are we going with the same full number of evaluation items as we did in the
Yeah, it's the
previous
same,
year?
it's the same rubric with the addition of the goals that Superintendent Walker laid out for us earlier in the year, in March, February. February. So it's the same process. Any other thoughts, questions? Does anyone have any objections to adjusting that early part of the timeline?
I have no objection.
All right. Okay, and then the next thing, we have powerful communication meeting with the board on Tuesday, May 2nd, I think is I want to make sure I have the right day, but it's the Tuesday, the first week of May.
May 3rd.
May 3rd, thank you. We are going to, we start at 6:30, it's a 3-hour session. We were thinking that it might be a good idea from 6 to 6:30, because this is dinner hour, 6:30 to 9:30. I'm sure everyone will be a little hungry. If we start from 6 to 6:30, because that 3 hours, unlike when we had our retreats with BOCES, when we had more of a opportunity to eat and expand it a little bit more, this is more focused. So that 3 hours, we're probably going to be working and focused. So we're going to suggest from 6 to 6:30 for everyone to assemble, sit down to eat, mingle, but at 6:30, we'll be ready to hit the road and start directly. Any problems with that? No, okay, very good. And then lastly,
I'm sorry, Iris.
Yes.
Question, are we expected to bring food, or are we going to organize a
we're
meal?
going to organize Tracy and her wonderful talents.
Thank you.
We hadn't
Okay.
maybe let Tracy know.
We
that
haven't
yet.
let Tracy know yet. But it'll be something, it will be small. We're not gonna.
Okay.
Just
go
something
crazy.
light, but
Something-
yeah.
Something light, but just so
No
that we
roast
have.
beast.
Because we don't want the waste of having all the food left over at the end. And then lastly is something for the board to start thinking about, which is in July with the retreat. Do we want to have a retreat? So right now we have our reorg meeting the second week, and you have your second work session, which was supposed to be about goals. We had said during Superintendent Walker's discussion with us that we were going to focus more in the summer on goals. So do we want to take that retreat date and push it back maybe till October? Because this summer is going to be packed with strategic coherence plan, some of the work on the facilities, as well as reopening with whatever COVID protocols may be out there, and goal setting. So if you're looking at your summer and the time you actually can dedicate, you're probably throwing a retreat in might be a bit something that you may want to opt to move out. We just want everyone to think about that. And then maybe when we talk in May, we can decide whether it's something we want to plan to push up or keep.
I think the one question I had.
Well, hold on, Neil. Anna actually.
Oh, I'm sorry, Anna, go.
Thank you, Neil.
I thought I could go.
I just wanted to ask with respect to the retreats, if we were still going to be using BOCES.
We talked about that, and we're looking, well, we're thinking about maybe expanding, depending on what the topic is. Stephen, Superintendent Walker was talking to us about a board self-evaluation tool and using that to try and identify the next topic. And then based upon the topic, look to see whether or not there are facilitators we want to use to support us, or if we even need one. Because, cost is always something to look at.
Thank you.
So that was the conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, my suggestion was, we can think about it, but I know that we will have 1 or 2 new board members. I think part of the question of in the retreat and the retreat subject may be, as we had this year, a lot of our retreat work was team building among, a team that had a lot of changes. And so I think probably after we know who will be joining the board or continuing on the board in July, which we'll know, middle or latter part of May, I think that would inform us better as to what, what the retreat should.
Okay, so we can
focus
raise
on.
it in June, at the June board meeting, or business meeting. Well, actually, the business meeting will switch with the work session.
Yeah, so you would raise, you do
At
it
the
at the
work
work
session.
session, so you have a month plus.
Sounds good. Yes, the 4 series was just something that we did this year. Usually there's only 2 retreats, so you'll be able to look at the schedule that way. And that's the end of board development.
Great, thank you very much. Communications?
Communications is scheduled to have a meeting on Tuesday, the 12th. However, I note that Tuesday, the 12th is during break.
It is.
And the question is whether we want to continue to have the meeting on Tuesday, the 12th, or whether we would like, whether administration would prefer for us to move the meeting away from Tuesday, the 12th.
I'll be in the office. It's fine by me. I'll be there.
Denise, you okay with it then? I understand. Then that's fine. We'll go ahead. We'll go ahead. Are you're?
I am.
You are available? Okay,
I'm
great.
available.
Then we'll stick with it.
All right.
Okay, that's the only thing I have.
All right, so Neil, you said you had some additional steps for additional info from policy.
Policy, we met yesterday. We discussed in some detail the code of conduct, which will be a subject for discussion on at the work session in April, on April 19th. That there are certain changes that are recommended by NISBA that we have gone through with regard to the code of conduct. And we've made changes on what they've recommended as well. But that will be a subject for discussion, which will be circulated ahead of time. Not for a vote, not for a first reading, but thereafter we will have first reading and then hopefully in May, and then second reading in June, which requires a public hearing, and that will have accomplished our obligation under statute and regulation to have an annual review of the code of conduct. We discussed a number of other policies which will be presented for first reading at the May meeting.
I think that covers all of our policies. The audit hasn't met, correct?
No, there was, yeah, we did not.
No.
All right, so then we'll move into polling of the board. Does anyone have anything for polling? Anyone?
How about the Black Council? Do we have a turnout?
We had a couple people stop by.
Yeah, well,
But more just to like.
stop by.
Yeah, like,
Hi.
you know,
No,
so
that's,
when you-
that's what it can be.
Yeah.
used for. That's
Yeah,
good.
but we didn't have much discussion.
Yeah.
Sarah and I had discussion. But, when people weren't stopping by, we got to chat.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
With respect to the signs that are posted at the various schools that say by the power of the Board of Education, you should not walk your dog on school property, is that required? Is it prescribed?
It's in.
I think it's in
Policy,
board
right? It's
policy.
in board
It's in
policy.
board policy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are those new?
No.
No, they've always been.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
They're-
never walked there, so I didn't notice.
Yeah, no, they're everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember a long time ago, before I was on the board, it had to do with what I was
Curbing your dog, right,
informed-
I get
Yeah,
it.
people were curbing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was informed before I was on the board.
But I think people still do it anyway.
I mean, I don't know, I mean. I
That's
don't
okay.
Come join us.
know. Yeah, I don't know.
Come join us.
I do think that to the extent that we should have our practice model our policy, it doesn't serve us to have signs up that say this when we see people walking their dogs on property, and such.
Well, on the other hand, if it becomes an issue and if there is a need to try to enforce it, absent a policy and absent a signage, we would not be able to enforce it. That is, so if we had a situation and the police department came and, said, can't have your dog here. Well, what's the authority for them to say that to the person who they're dealing with. I mean, it's similar in a way to something that happens here, which is idling of vehicles more than 3 minutes, right? By village law and by our own policy. If you're gonna be sitting there for more than 3 minutes in your car, you're supposed to turn it off unless it's below 32 degrees. To give the supervision at athletic events, the authority to go to the bus driver who is here from the far, from another school and saying, you can't sit there with your motor running. You gotta turn it off. We have to have that policy in place, and so we do.
I know, but to that point, wouldn't the policy be more like curb your pets? If
Pick
walking
up
on
after
school
your
property?
pet.
Well, it's something that can be talked about, but I think you also were talking about, well, if the policy is curb your pets, and we find, as some places do, some parks do, that people don't follow it, all right, what are we gonna do? We're not going after there. We're not the pooper scooper police.
Right,
So,
but to that end, you're not like policing who's walking their dog on property either.
well, that's.
We'll talk about it in policy committee.
We will, and we do have something, a superintendent who is now hearing this as a potential concern, and so we'll.
Although I will admit, a few Saturdays ago, I was in the office and had a really nice conversation with a parent who was walking her dog by the district office. So I've not done my job in terms of enforcing
I
the
wonder
policy
whether
either,
the,
so.
And I'm also thinking that, when you're in the district office on Saturday, knowing Penelope, you.
And that would be, that would be.
That would be a problem.
Just
Doesn't come to the
would be a
office.
different problem. That's a different
Yeah.
issue.
How do complaints about policy, what is the process with a complaint about a policy?
You mean, if a member of the public wants to, we have a policy about that. Which says, if you have something you want to raise about a policy, you raise it to the board. And then the board will, it'll be considered by the board or,
or
In the past, if we've had something that was
committee.
submitted to the board or sent to the board, the board officers would refer it to policy committee to begin discussion.
And what if somebody were to make a complaint about a policy to the administration? Does the administration inform the board of that?
Usually policy.
Right.
Usually they'll let the policy committee know in their meeting that, we've got these policies we're looking at because of, and a lot of the code of conduct changes come from complaints or.
No, I mean like violations of policy, like potential.
Violations of a
Yeah,
policy.
I'm sorry that I wasn't clear.
Oh, I thought you meant. change of a
Yeah,
policy.
so like violations to a policy, if someone's, questioning whether there was a violation to a policy, would they tell the board about that or they tell administration and then?
I think they would tell administration about that.
And do you report that to the board when there's?
Typically, if
questions
there's,
like that?
if there's an issue of someone saying, we have a concern with the policy or how it's being implemented, typically it would come in via email, we would forward it to the policy committee, typically as an FYI, and say, here's how we're addressing the concern that was raised.
I just have one more thing,
Yeah.
because I'm thinking of all the previous polling of the boards that we've done. Denise, with respect to the RFP for the turf feasibility, I had brought up, I think at one of my first meetings, that I had run into a couple parents that were like lost on campus and couldn't figure out where all the fields were and all that. Is there signage included in all of that?
We
There was?
did request a branding signage.
Oh, good.
Review, yes.
Nice, thank you.
Oh, Mark.
I actually had something for board reports.
Oh,
The PVC building.
It's actually polling.
Cap.
You're in the right
Oh, it's
spot.
polling?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad, then we're in the right place. Why can't I think of that? BCP, Building Planning.
Yes,
Council.
yeah.
Building Planning Council. Met today, and Mr. Plotkin walked the group through the priorities that are reflected in next year's budget. He also walked us through the renovation of the library in a little bit more detail, and we were happy to see some fabric samples and some color,
Swatches.
some palette selection. But the end of the meeting with just making sure we all were aware that there's the Culture of Respect Task Force is hosting Take Back the Night event on April 28th, starting at 5 Corners, which is an event to raise awareness around sexual assault. I just want to make sure the community was aware of that.
And Lucas had mentioned that in his report, but we should make sure. that
Yep.
people are aware.
Anybody else have anything for polling?
I would just say that the CET Building Planning Council meeting was canceled for this month because of other issues. I think it had to do with parent-teacher conferences occurring simultaneously, so they have nothing to do.
It's very nice to be back in person for parent-teacher conferences.
Oh, and I forgot to mention, we met in person today at PBC, which was really refreshing.
That is wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. Nothing else for polling? All right, we'll move into items needed for the next Board of Education meeting. So our next meeting will be our April work session, and we will be doing the BOCES budget vote and the code of conduct review. If anyone has any questions related to either of those, please just send them to board officers so that we can relay them to administration in a timely manner.
On the BOCES vote, so that everyone knows, we're voting on the administrative budget and on the two slots.
Correct.
on
You
the
should have all
BOCES
received
board.
the information from
Yeah.
Tracy.
Yes, and those two individuals are incumbents who are seeking to be reelected to the board.
Yes.
And certainly, I've, in my workings with them, I have found them to be good stewards of the BOCES board.
Tracy?
I received the budget pamphlet, so I'll be sending it to you.
Wonderful.
As well. Meet over the week.
Thank you very much.
Sarah, can you give a just quick rundown of what is in store in the next couple of months till the end of the school year in terms of the board meetings? Like what, I know there's some typical ones that if you have.
We're gonna give me a moment to
Okay.
pull up
No,
the
there's-
calendar.
It's the,
Yeah.
budget
We
vote.
have the budget vote and, well, the public budget hearing on May 5th.
And
Right,
which
so
is
that's
the
our
board
business
meeting.
meeting.
So that's a
And
board
it is a board meeting. That's the public budget hearing and business meeting for May. Then the May work session is the tenure celebration and is also the day of the budget vote. And then we'll have our June business meeting. Actually, June work session first, which is volunteer recognition, and then we will have our June business meeting toward the end of the month, because we often have action items that we need to take that come up toward the end of the month. So we swapped them.
So it's June 2nd is the work session, June 16th is. the
Good,
business
because I didn't have my calendar.
Okay.
So I didn't
Yeah,
know
sorry, I
the
didn't
dates.
mean- I didn't mean the
But yeah, they're all listed out on the board tab on the website as well.
Yeah, I didn't have the content, so that was helpful. Thank you.
All right, so that's it. Then with that, we do have an executive session. We expect to adjourn immediately following executive session. So I will say thank you to the community who joined us via live streaming and in person.
Did John have something? No.
All right, and so with that, recommended action that the Board of Education enters into executive session to discuss the employment of a particular person or persons.
Second.
James, Tracy can choose.
Neil's first, I'm second.
There you go. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion carried. All right, thank you very much, everyone, and have a good evening.